Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I am so happy that you're here. If you are listening to this episode in real time, it is the end of August. And if you are a mom with school-age kids, you know that this is such a transitional period of your life. Kids, you're either, depending on where you live, your kids are either just getting back to school or they're just about to go to school. And it's just all this change, right? All this change happening. And if you're not a mom, you still might be experiencing, because I think as we shift from that summer mode into fall, it's a time to for all of us to reevaluate kind of our habits. What have we let go of that we need to kind of tighten up? What do we want to change in our lives? And so our guest today is going to talk all about this. So joining me today is Emily Nichols. And Emily is the host of the popular podcast, Habit Hack Your Health. And she helps working moms, entrepreneurs, really just build healthy habits in their lives, doing, as much as they can to help themselves with relieving the guilt, which is something as moms, I think a lot of us struggle with that mom guilt, especially when it comes to putting ourselves first and it comes to our health. And so I don't think we could hear it enough from people to give ourselves the permission that we need, that we feel that we need in order to prioritize our own wellness so that we can show up for the people in our lives who need us. So really, Emily's on a mission to help redefine what health means and equip other women using these sustainable, what she calls habit hacks, to transform her life or your life from the inside out. And she's also a wife. She's a mom to 2 boys. And I know she's just gone through the whole back to school transition with her kids. So she's in it. And she's a Taco Tuesday enthusiast, which who doesn't love a good Taco Tuesday? I'm really excited for this conversation. I had the opportunity to be a guest on her show. I'm not sure if it'll have dropped by the time that this episode comes out, but I'm encourage you guys to check out her podcast as well afterwards. So without further ado, let me welcome my friend Emily Nichols to the show. Welcome, Emily.
Lori, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
I know, me too. Well, we just chatted for your show and it was such a great conversation. I was like, okay, we're going to do this again. And we're now sharing it. We're cross sharing it with our people. So I gave a real top line overview kind of about what you do in your mission, but just in your own words, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, well, like you said, I am first and foremost a mom, a wife, Labrador retriever lover, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Like you said, there's a lot of like taco and margarita analogies within my world.
I'm here for all of it.
I love it. I love it. But yes, I'm a fitness and habit coach. So I am the host of the Habit Hack Your Health podcast, where I help busy working moms in particular figure out how to actually take care of our own health. And I see it as a way of training for life. I've kind of noticed, as being a fitness instructor for over 8 years now, women know what to do. We're like, okay, I know I need to move my body. I know I need to eat healthier. I know I need to talk nicer to myself, but logistically, how do I make that work in my life? How do I actually take action? And that's where this comes into play, where we give our women habit hacks to help them think about habit strategy, but from the female perspective, in order to make their health a priority. And when they do that, like I'm sure you could attest to this too, Lori, everyone wins. Everyone wins around you when you are taking care of yourself and coming from a place of proactive self-care and healthy habits versus reactive day-to-day hot mess express. So that is what we do. I come through it through a lens of health because that is my zone of expertise. I only focus on mindset, movement, and food freedom, and really thinking about this as seasonal because, like, as you mentioned, we're in the midst of back to school. My kids are back to school, and I was just saying, well, we're in a new routine right now. We're switching around schedules. Like, I feel like I should get paid to be like mom Uber at this time in my life.
The struggle is so real. How old are your boys?
They're 15 and 11. So it's funny. My 15-year-old has his permit. So he drives me to where he's going and then I drive myself.
I remember that like fire drill where my kids were learning to drive and it was like, you drive and then we'll like quick switch around and
Yeah, but it's great. It's great connection time because I'm like, oh, well, when he starts driving, we won't have this time where he has to talk to me because we're stuck in a car together. So, but just like in seasons, like weather, like I feel like you go through different seasons of your life as your kids get older, as your careers change, your relationships change. And a lot of times the first thing we put on the back burner is our health. So we want to give women a system that is easy to almost become a habit in itself to pivot your habits. So you are taking care of yourself and training for life.
I love that. And it's for people that have been with us for a while, they have seen maybe the evolution. It's sort of been slow and organic, but I started this podcast, going on like 7 years ago, right? It was 2017 when I started it at the beginning of 2017. And, originally like everything was very tactical, designed about organizing your home, your spaces, and all those things. And as I've grown personally, as well as professionally, we really kind of broaden our approach to organization in terms of well beyond this stuff. And we look at all of these other factors that play into living an organized life, aside from a closet, a pantry, all the things. And we look at your finances. We look at how you're eating, if you're taking care of yourself, exercising, all of that, mental health, physical health, all of these things, because there is this like interwoven connection point that we don't always take the time to articulate. It's like we kind of know it's there, but it's until something breaks is when we're like, oh crap, like I really need to do this. And what we're trying to do is kind of get ahead of the 8 ball. And I think that's what we're teaching here and you're trying to do. And I know for so many people, I love what you said about like women know what to do, but yet there's this disconnect of knowing what to do and actually putting it to practice, because I do see that all the time. It's like, yeah, I know I should put my clothes in the hamper, or I know I should do the dishes, or I know I should meal prep, or I know I should go to the gym, or whatever the fill in the blank is. So a lot of us have the knowledge, we have the head knowledge, but what do you feel is, and this might be a loaded question, but like, how do you make that connection to say, I have the knowledge of what I need to do, but now I need to actually implement this? Where do you feel that disconnect comes from? And how do you motivate people to make those changes?
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part, right? Whenever I'm a coach at Orange Theory, and I always tell folks the hardest part is just getting here. Like once you get here and you start doing the thing, like then it becomes a habit, like you just do it. And I think for women in particular, not to discredit men, but I feel like we have to do habits differently. We want to take action. I don't know about you, but how many times have we sat down like on a Sunday evening and planned out, okay, I'm going to work out 5 days this week. I'm going to, have this big meal, #meal prep Sunday. I'm going to journal every night. I'm going to go for a walk and like meditate. I have it all listed out on my calendar. I'm going to do it. And then by Friday, you've done none of it. It's just out the door. And I think a lot of times women, a couple of things here. We come from a place of an all or nothing mentality. We have so many different pieces of advice coming to us when it comes to diet culture that we feel like we have to do it all. We have to do it all, and it's not one size fits all. And then we come from a place where we are just so overwhelmed. We're trying to do too much at one time. But also, like I said, diet culture has confused us, but also I don't know about you, but I have a lot of tabs open in my head, and they're not all for me.
Well, yeah, the mental load is a huge thing. I was
Yeah.
just having this conversation with somebody the other day in real life about she's a mom with a blended family. So there's a ton of kids.
All the kids.
And she's like stressed out because, and her husband is saying to her, why are you so stressed out? And she's like, what are you talking about? You go to work and do your thing. And I'm here trying to not only juggle my own life, but like all of these other humans and everything that needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, when I kind of went through my own health journey back in 2015, this is where like the whole concept of habit hacking your health came from, because my husband was going through it at the same time. And I was like, well, like working out just comes so easy to him. He just goes and eats healthy, and he like feels confident all the time. And as I was starting to coach people and, launch the podcast, he was just like, why is this so hard for women? And I'm like, because it is. It's like they don't understand. So when I say we have a lot of tabs open in our head, I'm thinking like, okay, I have these podcast interviews. When am I going to fit my workout in? And I still have stuff in the washer. I need to put it in the dryer, and I got to fold this stuff. Oh, there's dishes in the sink. Did I call the vet? Oh, my kid just called from school. They forgot their cleats. I got to run them up to school. Oh, another kid called. They're sick. I got to go pick them up from school. What was I supposed to be doing today?
Mm-hmm.
And you get pushed last. And that's just the way it is. We are nurturing beings by nature. We just are. And that is okay. So we kind of have to come at it from a place of like, I like to call atomic habits for women, though.
Yes, I love that. I saw that when in your bio, and I'm a huge James Clear fan for anybody who knows the book, Atomic Habits. So just maybe you could just talk about that for a bit, because I would love to, I'd love for you to elaborate on that for us.
Yeah. So Atomic Habits, I'm sure everyone listening has listened to this book by James Clear. I love it. It's what helped pivot me into thinking about habit strategy versus just like following like a diet plan or working out or whatever, and thinking about training for life and thinking of these habit hacks. And when we think of like what we learn in basic habit strategy, like from Atomic Habits, we're like, okay, we just set up a habit loop. There's a cue, routine, reward. We do the habit, bada bing, bada boom, it's done. But then we have all these other internal, external factors happening. And then we come from a place of feeling like a failure because we can't consistently do the habit every day or whenever we have it scheduled. So I come at it from a place of thinking like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's think about what season of life you're in right now, and what is one of the basic fundamental needs you need right now to take care of yourself. Because if we think back to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have that triangle at the bottom of the pyramid are just your basic fundamental needs. Like we have no base of support if you're not like sleeping well, hydrating, eating, moving your body. You won't be able to move up to like, having impactful relationships and self-actualization and feeling confident if like there's no base of support. Right. So just stepping back and thinking about what do I need right now? And like I said, I just focus on mindset, movement, and food freedom. There's obviously a lot of habits underneath there, but thinking back to also your core values, like who am I? How would these habits create this own habit identity of who I want to be? And also in the back of your mind thinking like, okay, well, when what hits the fan, what are some, what I like to call capacity habits when I can't do the habit I want to do? So say it is, hey, I want to go, take an hour-long workout class. Well, there's a lot of logistics around that. It's like, okay, I got to get ready. I got to make sure, everyone else is where they need to be. I need to drive there. I need to do the workout. I need to get home. I need to like get a shower. Like we don't think of like all the steps involved with that. Like it's so overwhelming. And that's a lot of times why we don't start habits, because we're like, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't open up another tab, even though I know it's good for me. So, maybe, what hit the fan today. So today my capacity habit is I'm just going to turn on my Peloton app and do like a 10-minute stretch before bed. That kind of triggers in your mind, like I did something. And something is better than nothing. And over time, you'll start developing this confidence in yourself by at least just doing your capacity habits, having a backup plan already in mind, because, some things may not go as planned. And that builds confidence in yourself instead of feeling frustrated. Like, I'm trying to create these habit loops. I'm trying to do this. But if this happens, then I have a capacity plan in the back pocket.
So just for my own, because I was taking notes, but I was trying to remember. So the capacity habit essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like, what's the minimum amount that I could handle today? Right? Like I'm at my capacity. So like, what is like the lowest hanging fruit that I can do that is going to not allow me to just then go down the shame spiral of, well, forget it. I may as well just eat the entire bag of chips because I didn't do that. Right.
Exactly.
Is that okay? I just want to make sure I'm
right
understanding it.
Yeah, because like you said, because then we're so overwhelmed, and even the thought of like taking care of ourselves, like it's like, oh, I feel so overwhelmed. But like you said, then there's that shame cycle where we're like, but I should, and I know I'll feel better, but I don't have the capacity to do much more of anything today. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna move my body for 10 minutes before bed, and you'll be like, okay, that was fine.
Right.
That's
well,
fine.
I love what Gretchen Rubin talks about, how she talks about the different quadrants of your day. And so you look at it for all my sports enthusiasts, you can look at your day like 4 quarters or, however you want to dice it up. And just because, let's say you're somebody that tends to work out in the morning and your morning goes sideways for whatever reason, the car gets a flat tire, the kid's sick, whatever it is. So now like your normal routine or habit is to do work out in the morning doesn't mean that you necessarily have to just abandon ship. You might be able to figure out, okay, well, maybe I can't get to my class if that was what you wanted to do, but maybe I can go for a walk around the neighborhood, or maybe I can do something else. Maybe I can fit something else in to replace it. And it gives us that opportunity. And you can apply that with organizing, right? Like I talk to people about basic things, like you should make your bed every morning. Well, let's say again, your morning goes sideways and your alarm didn't go off and something happened with the kids and you didn't. Okay. So you know what? Maybe it's 11 o'clock, noon, still go up and make your bed. It doesn't have to be like, well, I didn't make it, even though my intention is to do A, B, and C and have my schedule look a certain way. You can still achieve a sense of accomplishment if you factor it in and have that flexibility, which again is somewhat counterintuitive to our all or nothing, which is what you talked about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, because then that turns into a week of not making your bed. It turns into a week of not working out. It turns into a season of not doing A, B, C. And then you have to start it over again. And that feels overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit, because I kind of dove right into the meat and potatoes, but I'd love to hear kind of your backstory. I always think it's great to hear, just to kind of learn people's evolutions, both just from to get a feel for who you are, but also we do have a ton of women entrepreneurs that listen to our show. And I always just love hearing other women entrepreneurs' story to inspire and motivate them. So I'm just wondering if you can just walk us through your journey and kind of how you got here in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of female entrepreneurs, all of our stories start with some type of challenge or struggle in our life. And we found something that helped us. And now we want to help other people, And like I mentioned, my health journey began in 2015. I was climbing the corporate ladder, like trying to be like a Pinterest perfect mom for my boys. My husband was working a job at the time where it was shift work. Like he would work second shift, night shift, weekends, day shift, and his sleep was really suffering. And our house just felt tense. If someone's not sleeping, especially the dad, and I got noisy boys and dogs and everybody running through the house just felt tense, right? And I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself just to be just perfect and, working my butt off at my work and helping my boys, just be, good human beings. And I was dealing with it with really unhealthy ways, dealing with the stress and anxiety with really unhealthy ways. I used to drive a lot. I did nonprofit fundraising, and I used to drive a lot for work. So I would stop at the store. I'm like, oh, we need to get a few things for the boys. And I would get like a package of cookies. And by the time I got home, I started eating the cookies and I ate the whole package and I hid it under my seat because I felt so embarrassed, so shameful. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, if my little boys or my husband saw this, like I would be mortified. And my husband like I said, wasn't sleeping at the time. I was really dealing with like a lot of like excess online shopping. Like I love I still love cookies to this day. I just have a better relationship with cookies, tacos and margaritas. But he came to a point where he was, he used to be a runner, a big time athlete in high school. And he was like, babe, we need to do something for our health. I want to do something for my health and I need your help to do it. Let's really just dig into how we're eating and our eating habits and our relationship and habits around food. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to, is with him. I didn't want to with him.
I mean, that is, kudos to him for having that conversation and having it in such a like open-handed way where it wasn't like shaming and like, let's work on this together. But that's a bold move.
Yeah. And it wasn't about, right. And it wasn't about like losing weight or anything. It was like, we want to feel healthy and we want to set a good example for our boys. So we really just kind of overhauled what we were eating. We, started doing like little mini meal preps and working together. And by the time like 30 days into this journey, we were like, I feel really freaking amazing. And my husband, over time, we started digging deeper into movement. Then, I started going to spin classes. I started teaching spin classes. He started running again. And after that, it was like, okay, well, I'm digging deeper into personal development now too. I'm listening to podcasts, listening to books, like really digging. It was just like a positivity snowball, like I call it.
I was just going to say, well, you see, like once you start with one area, it opens up the doors and like kind of paves the way. And we see that with decluttering your home, how it opens it up. So it's a similar, one feeds the other one.
Yeah. And it wasn't all at once. This is like a 6-month period, right? It was just a little bit of this. And they were kind of, all these healthy habits were influencing other healthy habits. Over time, like my husband lost like 50 pounds. He's like a triathlete now, a marathon runner, like Boston qualifier, like marathon runner. Like he's bananas. And, and I became a habit and fitness coach. But what I realized over time was a lot of my girlfriends were like, well, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm just eating healthier and I'm moving my body. And they're like, well, how are you finding time to do this? And it's like, oh, well, I really dug deep and I became a behavior change specialist during this time at being a fitness coach as well. Cause I was like, I could geek out on habit strategy, like all day long. How can we help you habit hack this in your life and make it not about like becoming a certain size, but like I said, training for life and really showing up as the healthiest version of yourself. And with that, the podcast was born, our programmings were born. We have a new shop that just started, which with digital, like habit hacking tools, like trackers and habit inventories. And like I said, we just focus on those basic fundamental needs and how to habit hack them in your life with our systems in order just to live your best freaking life and feel your best. And it really just started with one conversation with my husband. And I know it's hard to do something like that with your spouse. Like that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
For sure. But our boys now, like they are like, they're 15 and 11 and they've seen this evolution over the past 8 years and they live that lifestyle now too. They are very active. They eat healthy. They still, like to have stuff that kids love to have, but they see us listening to personal development. They are listening. Been like, oh, you need to do this. It was just us modeling that to them. They're out, running on the treadmill or going for walks outside without us telling them like to do this. So it's just been the best evolution for our family, not just me, it wasn't just about me, but it was best evolution for our family and recognizing like, okay, well, how my husband did things, I needed to do it has to be a solution for other women. So that's how Habit Hack Your Health came about. That's how we help women now through our programmings and a lot of conversations with women just being like, how can I help you? Like, what are you struggling most with? And they're like, well, it's just so confusing. Like, you get on social media when it comes to your health and you're like, someone's posting this before and after picture of this like diet they followed, or they followed this workout plan, or they were doing this meditation. I'm like, well, what works best for you? Like what feels good for you, and redefining what health really means for you, because that's personal, just like what self-care means. What it means to me is different for you. So it's been a really exciting journey. The brand has shifted since we started the podcast in 2019. And I feel like it's at that point now where it is just thriving and women are, it's just clicking. You know what I mean? It's like we finally got to that point.
I love that. I love that. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to dive in because you have this you have a 5-step habit change method. And I want you to walk us through that so that we can understand. Obviously, we're going to kind of drive people to check out the podcast and all the offerings, but I think it's going to be really fun to dive into it. So sit tight. We'll be right back. All right, Emily. So I love this. And thank you for walking us through and sharing your story. I think, again, it's really helpful for people to kind of learn and see where people came from and how, something that they might be struggling with can really have a huge impact in your life in ways that you never even envisioned, right? That you never even thought about. You came from the nonprofit world, and here you are coaching women on health, habits, mindset, all the things. So I love that. I think that's such a great lesson for all of us to learn, just to listen and be aware of opportunities that are out there for us. Okay. So let's talk about the tactical things. You have this 5-step habit change method that you've developed and that you teach people. Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. So we have a free masterclass called the Healthy Habit Reset. It's a free masterclass available all year round where I teach this 5-step habit change method. We actually do it live every quarter as well, because I think it's good to check in every quarter and think about, okay, what's working right now, what's not, especially like back to school time. But this is for like someone that's like, I need basic habit strategy 101, but from the female perspective. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So step 1 is to identify your fundamental needs. What is going to best serve you in this season of life that you are in? And since I come from the realm of health, we focus on, like I said, mindset, food freedom, and movement,
Right.
mindset, freedom. Yes. So kind of thinking about, okay, it's back to school time. Okay, what fundamental need will serve me best right now? So let's kind of think about this. Well, for me, it's food freedom, because like I said, I'm running my kids around all the time. So I need to do maybe a little extra mini meal preps or have some really easy, like slow cooker meals ready to go in the evenings. So we have easy dinner time and we're not eating like at 4 p.m. or like 9:30 p.m., depending on the day.
Oh yeah, for real.
You know what I mean? And then step 2 is your habit identity. How is that habit, that fundamental need, going to help you be the best version of you? Like, well, in this season of life, doing little mini meal preps and having healthy foods and snacks ready to go, not only for my kids, but for my husband and I, will help me to be a more patient and present mom. It'll help me feel my healthiest. I won't feel sluggish because I'm turning to like quick sugar fixes or whatnot. So that would help me with with the habit identity, with those habits. Step 3 is to think of like, okay, now, when am I going to find the time to do this?
For sure. Yes.
Okay, when? So I would suggest sitting down and doing something called a habit inventory or a time inventory. So just, take a couple of days when you have like a normal like work schedule and write down everything you do in a day. And this might seem tedious, but as you're doing stuff, just just have a pen and paper ready, or we have a digital one coming out, or we have a pen and paper one, or just like a pad of paper you can do. And what you'll come to notice is how many times you're picking up your phone and just like scrolling, how many like mundane tasks you're doing that really could be pushed away, and you could maybe do a little mini meal prep in 30 minutes versus, scrolling funny dog videos on Instagram. That's what gets me every time.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Step 4 is to create an actual habit loop. So I alluded to this earlier. A habit loop is a cue, a routine, and a reward. Okay. This is setting you up to do the actual habit. So we already have tons of habit loops throughout our day, right? Thinking about, like your morning routine, like getting ready in the morning, you have habit loops in place where you don't even think about it, like brushing your teeth. You're like, okay, I do something, there's some type of cue before I brush my teeth. Usually it's like, oh, I get up, I go to the bathroom, I wash my hands. All right, there's my cue. I brush my teeth. The reward on the other side, I have good dental hygiene. Like it's simple like that. But you actually have to like make some intentional habit loops. So for me, for many meal preps, I don't like to do big meal preps because I don't have time for that. And I get frustrated when I can't consistently do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would suggest is, okay, a cue is every time I make a meal That's my cue. The routine is I throw extra protein in the Instapot, the slow cooker, the oven, whatever. The reward is on the other side. Oh, I have extra protein the next day where I can create an easy meal. And at the same time, I always say, thank you, Emily, from the past for meal prepping for me, because you totally saved my butt tonight versus having to like drive through the Chick-fil-A line. And nothing's wrong with like driving through the Chick-fil-A line, but if you're doing it like every night, you know how you're going to feel on the other side. And your
Well,
bank
also doing it
account.
by choice versus desperation. I think there's a
Yes. Oh my
difference of
gosh.
there's a difference of saying, hey, we're going to eat out tonight because we want to versus we have no food, we have no other option.
Yeah. Or you're like, I'm so burnt out. I can't and not even think of making dinner. And then the final step number 5 is to track and then start stacking. Okay. So you can use a habit tracker as you are moving along. Habit tracking is so great because it gives you accountability. I mean, how many of us love writing to-do lists and then checking off what you already did? There's so much like satisfaction and motivation, but it also gives you black and white data. Because a lot of times you'll look at that and be like, oh, I haven't been doing good meal prepping. And you're like, oh, well, I did it 5 days this week. Like I'm rocking it. Or you can be like, oh, well, it's not working. Maybe it's just the time I'm doing it. Maybe like seriously, when I'm getting my kids ready in the morning, I need to throw some chicken thighs in the oven at 6 in the morning and have it ready for later in the day. Cause that's what works best. And then stacking is, okay, it's feeling good. This habit's feeling good. Now I can stack more habits. How can I stack movement now?
Right. And I love that because again, you're doing it one step at a time. If you're going from feeling like a complete hot mess in all areas, for you to come in there and be like, okay, I'm going to start meal prepping. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start doing all this at once. It's like trying to organize every room in your house at the same time. It's just, you start in one area. And I always tell people your clutter didn't accumulate overnight. You can't expect it to go away. It's, there are certain it's a process and we're playing a long game. Like you said, we're talking about a lifestyle. We're not saying we're trying to lose 10 pounds because of a wedding or a vacation or something. You're saying, I want to start developing habits, these healthy habits so that I can play with my kids, play with my grandkids, feel good about myself, move more, whatever it looks like. And so doing those intentional and like waiting until I don't know if master is the right word, but till you feel confident in one area before moving on to something else.
Yeah. And, there's a saying that, and I've said it for the past few years too, it takes 21 days to form a habit. It can take 90 though, for it to feel like a lifestyle, right? For it to feel like an unconscious habit. And I have a lot of clients ask like, well, how long should I track this habit?
Okay.
And I'm always like, you'll know because you'll stop tracking it because you're doing it and you're like, I don't even need to track it. I'm just doing it.
I like that. And it just gives you that accountability for doing it. Cause a lot of times, cause we talk a lot about calendar clutter here too, which is, that overscheduled, I don't have time. And whenever I work with somebody, the first thing I say is, let's just do an inventory. And again, it's not for blame. It's not for shame. But let's do an inventory of how are you spending your time from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed and factor in all the things, driving your kids to and from practice or preschool or school, like factor that 20 minutes in the car back and forth, factor the shower in, factor all that. And so when you start to add up, more often than not, people have more stuff than they do time, right? When you factor in all the things that you think you're going to get done. And so you look at, all these things that you wanted to accomplish. And for so many of these people, specifically women, the thing that gets the cut is their own health and wellness. And so, what can we do? And again, it's not there to point fingers or have you feel poorly about yourself. But like you said, it's data. It gives you the context of, okay, this is like, it becomes a math equation at some point, what are you doing with your time? And if we want to make these improvements, something has to give. And so I like the fact that you're giving that concrete, allowing people to have that space for that concrete information.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just basic habit strategy. What to really dig deeper from there is to really take a look at your calendar and think of like, okay, well, now I want to insert these into some routines that I already have set throughout the day. Like you think of your morning routine, right? The order in which you get ready. You don't even have to think about it. You bam, 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 bam. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Or a lot of times, a lot of folks talk about time blocking or routine blocking. And that personally makes my palms sweat because I like to have flexibility, but also streamlining it where it's like, okay, this is, the time that I'm able just to like focus on myself. This day is themed around, setting appointments, having self-care time, working out, getting the things out of my head and organization and my junk drawer, even, thinking of all these little things that you could do within like a time period, and having a theme around it will help you eliminate that clutter on your calendar, because we hear that a lot as far as like mindset goes. Like the biggest challenge with our audience is like disorganization in their home and like in their head and just overscheduled calendars. So you can habit hack that as well, but you have to have it streamlined and making sure it's not causing more overwhelm for you and analysis paralysis too.
Oh, absolutely. And what I tell people when I talk about time blocking is the freedom that not every day has to be Groundhog's Day. Not every day needs to look the same. And we are in different seasons of life, right? We are like, maybe your fall is super busy because your kids are in a ton of activities and you have all this back to school stuff or whatever. Or maybe, your spring is like that. So again, things will vary. It doesn't have to be, well, every day we are exercising at the same time and every day we're doing X, Y, and Z at the same time. You might say, I have more time to work out in the morning on these days, afternoon on these days. I meal prep, I prefer to meal prep on Sundays in the fall because we're home, but in the spring, we're not really around. So I do it on Tuesday afternoons, or I don't know, I'm making it up. And that's what it does, is it just gives you the space to say, I have all these things that I want to accomplish. Because one of the things, and I don't know if you see this, is I see the level of defeat in women where they feel like they are beating themselves up for not doing all the things. And when you are allotting specific time for things, it gives you permission to say no to the other things. Like, I've already committed to this for now. And so everything else can take a back burner. And that, I think, is the hard part for a lot of women.
Yeah. I suggest we do like a Sunday planning day, and we just, we dump everything that we need to do, like work, kids, all the things. But as far as like your healthy habits go, I suggest to women, like, okay, take a look at all the things for everyone else and then have a separate calendar just for your healthy habits. That way it doesn't get lost in the clutter. Not that you have to have like 20,000 calendars. Like, I prefer using a Google Calendar.
That's
for
what I
all
used to.
things, but then I have a paper calendar for my health.
Oh,
I do paper because it's like meditative to me. Like, I get like my pretty markers out. I sit down and I write down what I'm going to do throughout the week, and referencing, my calendar on my Google Calendar, because I like to get the notifications and the cues and stuff like that. And I'll still put cues on my calendar, like, oh, time to go work out, just a reminder, or I'll put like a positive affirmation on my calendar just to pop up and be like, girl, you're rocking it. Let's go. But I keep it separate because it just gets lost in all of the other clutter, and all of the other clutter usually isn't for me. It's for other people. So for me, it's more of like a self-care practice, sitting down with like a pretty calendar, pretty markers, just writing down what I'm going to do for myself this week.
I love it. I love it. So if we have somebody that maybe is just in the throes of feeling overwhelmed, specifically in the area of their health and their wellness and all those things, and they want to get started. And I know, and the answer might be no, but is there a specific area that you recommend? Like, if you're feeling overwhelmed in all the areas, and where's the first place that you recommend people getting started?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. For me, it always starts with mindset. It always starts with mindset, because if you're going into your workouts thinking like, I have to do this. This is something I should be doing, instead of being like, I get to do this, I want to do this, you're not going to get the physical benefits of it.
My kids make fun of me all the time, my girls, because I say that. And I say it for myself as my own affirmation of like, I get to go out and exercise. I get to, and then and I could go like really dark. Like there are people that are in a wheelchair. There are people, but I'm like, I get
Absolutely.
to, God has allowed me the ability to be able to do this. And yes, this workout might suck right now, or you know what I mean? But this is a gift. And I will constantly have to remind myself when you're in it and you might not be feeling like it. But like you said, when you're done, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I took care of myself for that. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And well, and just thinking back to like your core values, like for me, it's always like faith, my family, and then my health. Then my
Mhm.
health, because if I don't have my health, honestly, I don't have anything else. And so I think you have to sit back and think about, is health one of your core values? And if you're like, no, it's not one of my core values, okay, that's fine. That's personal to you, but why not? Why not? Why not? I would challenge you to ask yourself, well, why not? And really reframing your mindset around what you think is health. Is it like, I grew up watching my mom, weigh her food and doing Weight Watchers and getting like the little ribbons and putting it on her fridge and everything like that. And, then gaining the weight and then losing the weight, and exercise as being as a way to get skinny, or watching videos of folks like Victoria's Secret models and like tearing out Cosmo magazine models and putting them on my bulletin board in my sorority house. Like that's the culture I grew up with. So it's reframing what you think is healthy and asking yourself, well, why isn't health a core value of mine? What have I grown up thinking? How can I reframe this? And then, okay, let's take action now.
I love that. I think that is so great. Um, on that note, tell our listeners, where is the best place if they want to learn more about what you're doing, if they want to get involved in any of your groups, or obviously the podcast, just all the things.
Yeah. Well, you can find Habit Hack Your Health on all of your favorite podcast streaming services. There's a ton of freebies linked within the show notes every week around mindset, movement, and food freedom, and that healthy habit reset masterclass we were talking about as well. And you can find the Healthy Habit Reset there. Like I said, it's available all year round, or we do it live every quarter with folks as well.
I love that. And of course, we will link up to all things Emily in our show notes. So if you're out, hopefully walking or doing something fun or driving in the car, we got your back. So don't worry about that. All right, we're going to take our one last quick break, and then we come back. We'll just put you in the hot seat for our wrap up questions. So sit tight. All right, Emily, I could chat with you all day about all this stuff because, again, there's so much overlap in the stuff that we're teaching here with, getting rid of the physical clutter and the emotional stuff that is just holding us back, and really creating those pathways so that you can find freedom and time to develop these healthy habits for movement and mindset and food freedom and all that. So love it. Okay. So we talk a lot about books, things that have inspired us in our own journeys. And obviously we know Atomic Habits was something that you mentioned, has been something that's somewhat transformational for you and your business. And I'm wondering if there's another resource that you either have come back to or that you refer to people that really has had an impact that you want to share with our listeners.
So my other favorite habit strategy book is called Tiny Habits by Dr. BJ Fogg.
I have that book right here on.
Oh my gosh. Like,
yes.
James Clear and BJ Fogg, I'm like, y'all, you guys, you're my homies. You don't even know it. Like, I'm obsessed with you guys. But what I love about Tiny Habits is making it so tiny and so small and simple to make a habit work, because as women, we have to do habits differently and we try to do too much at once. So I'll tell you this really quick, Lori, we have this thing in our community called P squats. So this is kind of based on like tiny habits. So when we're thinking of like movement and working out, it doesn't have to be like some big workout. It could be like, I'm staying hydrated. I got to go potty a lot every day. So every time I go to the bathroom, I wash my hands, I do 10 squats. So if you go to the bathroom,
my gosh,
10 times, you're going to have 100 squats. Your glutes are going to be lifted. Like quads are going to be popping. But if you try to do 100 squats all at one time, like you'd burn out. you couldn't do it. So hashtag pee squats. Like
I love the pee squats.
Yes. And like, most of us have to pee all the time. I mean, we're all moms. So, so it's just, it's a funny way, but also a simple way to remember like, oh, I don't have to make this so complicated and big. Let's make it tiny. Let's make it easy and stack it on something I'm already doing.
I love it. I love it. It's so great. And it's such a good book. I'm like, it's on my bookshelf somewhere. Oh, it's right here. Hold on. For anybody watching us.
Yay.
Right here. There it is. Tiny Habits.
It's really good on Audible too. He's got a great voice.
I've got like tons of like earmarks and written stuff. So such a great book. And I also have Atomic Habits somewhere too.
Totally. I think everyone.
Of course. And then our last two questions we ask every guest. In this particular season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
I feel the most organized when it comes to movement for me. Obviously, I'm a trainer, I'm a fitness coach. It's been a long time of habit hacking where movement just feels so natural to me. I don't have to like habit hack it. It's just something I naturally do every day and it fills me up like my soul, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then physically when it comes to movement. And it doesn't have to be something crazy. Just getting out and walking is my favorite thing ever. As far as like feeling like a hot mess, it's always the laundry. It's always the laundry. And I talk about this all the time because like I said, one of our challenges in regards to mindset is disorganization or like stuff, piling up as far as like your chores or whatever. And, my boys are older, they do their own laundry. It's great, but I just cannot like get it folded and washed on the same day. I just cannot. I like habit hack like work. I'm going to watch like some trash TV while I fold it. It's like a treat while I'm doing it. And I can't. And it's fine.
I feel you. I am very fortunate that my husband is obsessed with doing laundry. And I am not exaggerating when I say obsessed, like it's an OCD, like he has to do it, fold it, put it away, all the things. And it used to be a stressor in our marriage because I dreaded it too. And it would irritate him so much. And I would say, well, if it's such a pain point for you, then you do it. Like, don't complain about it, then just do it. And he started just doing it. And so it's not that I won't do the laundry and I'm happy to do it, but and now he doesn't, well, he still travels, but not as much as he used to, like pre-pandemic. And so since he's home, the laundry just keeps going. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I have not touched the laundry in a couple of weeks. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. There's other things that, he's amazing but that is, we call him laundry loving Josh because it's like a weird thing. So I always feel for you. I feel for my friends when they stress out about laundry.
Did you ever feel like guilty about that?
Not about that. There were other things in my life, in my younger self, where I was super prideful and I was like, you can't do that. That's my job and blah, 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 but I'm over that, yeah. I'm like, you want to help out, you want to do it. That's great. But we have other very defined things that we do and some things that we kind of blend together. But I
love that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my thing. So I would love, people are like, can I borrow him? I'm like, oh, go for it. Take him away. All right, Emily, thank you again for coming on our show. We'll make sure that we link to all the things. So check out, if you're listening to our podcast, I know you'll love hers. So check that out as well. If you are new to our show, make sure to click the subscribe, follow button wherever you are listening. We have our tip of the week. If you love habits and all the little things, especially micro things, not only do we drop our episodes on Thursdays, which are our long form interview episodes, but every Monday we do a short, quick tip of the week. And so that is out there for you guys to just give you a little bite-sized nugget of something to incorporate into your day or your week, or to just something to think about that maybe, in all the other 1,000 things on your mental to-do list, you might not be thinking about. So make sure to check that out. And, until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.